increases in input prices such as fertilizers and so on, which are mostly imported and which we have no control over. We have to be able to overcome that, or show the farmer how to overcome that by training them how to produce more in essentially the same area, increasing productivity. So we continue to do that, and on the SVG Food Insecurity Project, which we could speak about some more, there's significant training there, and there's also quite a bit of resources that would be provided to farmers in various sectors, in the fruit and vegetable sector, in the livestock sector, and also in fishery sector. That's also an important sector. Often we think crops and livestock, but also fisheries. So the various units are prepared, ready to ramp up, if I may, this kind of production, and of course coordinate that into a supply arrangement that satisfy the demands for these additional rooms, and of course to ensure that our population eat healthy. Sometimes we forget that we need to eat healthy. For example, we need to eat 12 ounces of fruits and vegetables. How many of us do that? It suggests the kind of demand that exists even locally. So we're pushing ahead. And of course, I'm the first to acknowledge that we do have our challenges as well on the technical side, but with cooperation, we can make it happen. What we need are more partnerships and greater level of working together, public, private, the farmers, the ministry, and so on.
How have the farmers been responding?
Particularly to this project? Pretty well. We've, on the SVG Food Insecurity Project, which addresses the need for increased food production to avoid the crisis, a food insecurity crisis, which could lead to other social ills. We issued a call, and farmers responded pretty well. We had over 1,800 application forms, and we're currently assessing those to determine, who's best suited for what kind of support. And pretty much within the next month or so, we'll be in a position to indicate who would be working with and the kind of numbers we're looking at in terms of production.
Okay, we take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk in detail about this project, why such a project, and what are the main components, and who is expected to benefit from this project, and why the need for a project, and also when we talk about food insecurity, what exactly we are talking about. Back in just a moment.
Right.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were about to introduce the real biggie, a big project that was launched in April of this year, the Food Insecurity Project. First, explain to us what we mean when we talk about food insecurity, and then we could also talk about why the need for such a project at this particular juncture.
When you look at the definition of food security, food must always be available, affordable, and accessible. And there are some situations where food could be accessible, but the price is so high, you can't buy it. It could also be affordable, but we don't have enough producers, therefore it's not available. And it can be affordable and available, but the transportation and different things, you can't get it readily. And what we want to do is that we want for every single Vincentian. We don't want a person to go to bed hungry at night. And that mantra was clearly explained by the Honorable Prime Minister. And I remember when we brought in the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, they said to us that with the large number of tree crops that we have in the country, sometimes we do not work hard enough to ensure that the food that is available, that it is put to the best use. For example, you may ask the question, when we have breadfruit in season, why do some people still eat so much rice? And why do some persons consume so much flour? And it goes back to the question of the support that local consumers must always give to the sector. Because you have persons who are going to the banks, to the credit unions, they're making an investment, and consumers must always be in solidarity with farmers and food handlers and traders, because that is how we can ensure an excellent return on the investment. So I am confident that with the work that we are doing, that we will continue to ensure that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that we are food secured. However, with so many vagaries of climate change, sometimes you wake up and you look at the weather report and you are attacked by a hurricane. It can knock you off the path of food security. And I'm happy that we are doing significant work in diversification, because we are also expanding in root crop production, ensuring that even though the plantains may be down and the bananas may be down, we have dasheen and tania and edos, and we have ginger and turmeric and these different root crops. So I am very happy with the direction that we're heading in. But I just want to make one very important point before Colville goes into some of the more technical areas touching on concerning the plan. We have witnessed over the last year here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines the coming on board of lending institutions ready, willing and able to provide capital to farmers and fishers. And this is definitely evidence that the sector is alive and well. Because once you can get the confidence of the financial institutions, we're hearing it from the credit unions, we're hearing it from the banks, they have in different packages, and also we have persons who would supply, for example, the weed whackers, the weed trimmers, and they're also coming on board and providing credit, persons with engines for boats. This is encouraging, so not only land as a factor of production, but also capital is being made available. And one of the areas that we have to work on when we speak about food security and ensuring food security, is the fact that we have to have the laborers, the workers. And I wish to thank the Ministry of Education, working with the youth in the country to engender that hope and that love so that we can have more young persons entering the sector.
Right, so just a little from a bit more in terms of the background to that project. Minister mentioned we're challenged by climate change. We had COVID. I think people have forgotten about the ravages of COVID and the need to be food sovereign, not just food secure, not just to have food and nutrition security, but some sovereignty, because we saw the disruption that took place. Even though we could have imported, in theory, this food, we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
And it is important when the eruption took place, which is also part of the narrative, that created some disruptions as well, right? And of course the Russian-Ukraine war that is driving fertilizer prices and other input prices through the roof. So without us doing a single thing, cost of production is going up, the price for the consumer therefore is going up as well. And so when we looked at what the combined effect of the eruption, COVID, and so on, we saw a reduction of about 30% in our production. And that was sufficient, that provided sufficient evidence that we need to put make an additional injection into the sector and to ensure that we have the kind of production that feeds our nation, the visitor and resident ones, but also to ensure that we have the production to meet other needs. And although the project doesn't focus on exports, we have to recognize that strong demand in some areas were driving prices up simply because there was insufficient production in fish, in fruit and vegetables, and some other areas. So the idea was that we need to make it available, as Minister mentioned. We also need to make it a bit more affordable. And for those who just couldn't, that we also make it accessible through, those who are more vulnerable and very sensitive economically, who cannot afford those things. We also have components in it, particularly in the home garden side, to ensure that they can produce and consume for themselves. So, by the way I just discussed there or described, we essentially selected a few areas where we think that there was absolute need. Our protein need, we couldn't tackle poultry. That was a bigger struggle, but we definitely are pushing along with ruminants, sheep, goat, cattle, rabbits, pigs, and poultry. A bit of poultry, not as strong as we would like, but definitely we are pushing ahead with broilers and layers as well. And that would ensure that we have some protein security, especially. We also looked at ramping up production of fruit and vegetable, as mentioned earlier, to meet our requirements according to the food-based dietary guidelines. And we also did a similar thing for fisheries. So if I could work backward, in the area of fisheries, we wanted to ensure that there is greater capacity or greater result or landings for the effort made. And with the fisheries division involved, the decision was made that, look, if we could put down additional fish aggregating devices, about 12 of them in the sea, then fishers can go to these devices and fish and be assured that there will be a catch, larger catches, and of the desired species that we know that exists, the high-valued species. That addresses livelihoods, and it also addresses food security. In the area of livestock, some persons may have seen our first shipment of animals, some sheep, last 2 weeks ago. That's our first shipment, but we have another batch of animals, cattle, sheep, cattle, goat, rabbits, pigs, to come in. These are high producing breeds, and it speaks to the point that I made earlier about increasing productivity. So we had a sheep. Normally some persons, farmers have sheep, their carcass weight is about 30 pounds, just carcass weight. But if you have a sheep that is bordering on 100 pounds for the same effort, then you get, again, you address food security, but you also address livelihoods out of that. And in the crop side, I like to speak about that, with a bit of excitement, not that the others aren't. One of the challenges, huge challenges with farmers is that they cannot find farm labor. And what we are attempting to do is for those labor that exist, and we saw it happening with Dasheen, they're using the augers to dig holes and so on. You can cultivate a wider area, bigger area, in shorter time and for lower cost. What we have attempted through this project to do is to lower cost of production by infusing significant amount of mechanization. So we're looking at the tillers that could cultivate acres. I did a guesstimate based on working numbers that we could do well over 180 acres a day if we deploy all of these machines on the same day. So we have potential.
Bringing these machines in.
This would be part of the project. We also have
so there'll be an enhancement in mechanization, because what we're noticing, some persons have a view, it's a myth, that young people don't want to participate in production. But when you look at the list of applicants to work on the agriculture stations, where you have shade houses, where you have more technology, the list is an extremely long list, stretching beyond 400 applicants.
Yeah.
But to get a young man to pick up the scoop and the fork, it's not as attractive. But if you provide him with an auger, which is an implement that he can use to do the same hole, and he has to start it has an engine, he has to fix it, it's more engaging.
A bit more sexy.
And it's also easier.
Let's talk some more about that when we come back, and also about the actual implementation of this project. Back in just a moment.
We'll speak about that and the greenhouses that are targeted at youth again, because one of the elements of food security is sustainability.
Play for.
Here's your chance to win even more from the National Lotteries Authority when you play for 2 times daily. Choose 4 numbers from 0 to 9 and you can win up to $5,000 with a $1 inline bet.
Mix 4 and back it up too. There'll be lots of cash waiting for you.
Get your tickets Monday to Saturday for the Play 4 midday draw at 1:50 p.m. and the Play 4 night draw 9 p.m. So easy to play.
You'll win even more.
Thinking of winning the lotto jackpot? Well, there is an easy way. Combo Play. Choose 4 numbers from 1 to 36. That's a combo 4 at a cost of $64. Match any 4 of the 5 numbers and win the lotto jackpot. There's Combo 6, where you purchase 6 numbers for only $12. Match any 5 of the 6 lotto numbers and hit the jackpot. How about Combo 7? That's a purchase of 7 lotto numbers for $42. Match any 5 of the 7 numbers and you will win the jackpot. There are also Combo 3, Combo 8 and Combo 9 lotto plays. Visit the NLA headquarters in Pauls Avenue or WhatsApp 495-6886 for more details. Lotto, you have to be in it to win it.
Welcome back. Just a reminder to you that you can send your questions and comments to the Minister or to Mr. King by putting them on our Facebook or YouTube pages, and they'll be sure to answer or respond to any concern you may have. Minister and Colville, you all are getting excited there about the fact that young people seem to be very interested in getting involved in this project.
We're at a stage where we're advancing the commercialization of a diversified platform in agriculture in the country. We remember the days when we had the trade preferences for bananas. Persons will go to the bank, they will obtain a loan to buy a pickup. That pickup, we had scores of pickups heading on the windward side, leeward side, the center of the country. They would get financing to build sheds, to lease lands, to cultivate the land. And there was a commercial structure around it. And in the margins of that commercial production, you had persons who were growing root crops. Some persons were doing it at a subsistence level. They will eat some, and the rest they would aggregate with other persons who sell to traffickers. Now that we have bananas out of the equation, that group and that basket of goods, which hitherto resided in the margins, we are now bringing it on a commercial platform. So I want for persons who are following the program to have that appreciation. So when we have the injection now of the capital that we're speaking about, we are injecting it to create a commercial platform. And when we speak about creating that exceptional cadre of multi-talented and multifaceted young persons, they are excited and they're trained. So we had to do an assessment as to what would excite the next generation of farm workers. And I want to thank the technical staff, because when I looked at the budget and I recognize a significant percentage of the expenditures actually going into mechanization, it goes to show that we are very responsive to what is taking place in terms of bringing the young people on board.
Yeah, so I just to reinforce the point, we're looking at productivity, sustainability, resilience, and we have to ensure that young persons get into the sector at a rate quicker than the older ones are getting out, right? Apart from the mechanization, and there are significant quantities of this aimed at improving productivity, aimed at reducing cost. One of the other areas for young persons is that we are also introducing greenhouses, and we're going to utilize these in a unique way. These greenhouses would be placed at the government stations. Young persons, applicants, would be trained, very high level of training, both in terms of greenhouses as we know it and hydroponics. They would then be afforded to operate within that greenhouse for 2 years. They generate income, they gain the kind of expertise needed on the guidance, on the guidance of persons who can sufficiently guide them. And at the end of 2 years, they can then use income from that to be able to purchase their own greenhouses. We take them in a next cadre, a next cohort of young persons. So part of the idea is sustainability, ensuring that we have a continual flow of persons through. Because we know, especially in the hotel sector, there's this great demand for vegetables year-round. And in field production, there are gaps. When it's raining too much, there's no vegetables. When we don't have rain, as we had 3 weeks of no rain in September, 2.5 weeks of no rain in October, so you know what is going to happen in December. What we're hoping is that, what we're going to do is to ensure that these greenhouses produce, especially to ensure that there's not that great dip in production. So we have season extension, we have a sustained level of supply. When big buyers want produce. They don't want it 3 months now and then 3 months later you're not having it or the quality is bad. So we're ensuring that we train the persons who have come out of the technical college, St. Vincent Community College, Division of Technical and Vocational Education, that they have a place where they can now physically hone the skills that they would have learned, apply the knowledge that they would have learned. And with time, we're going to transform.
I just want to address the issue of the establishment and the transitioning from one supply chain to the other. So in the days of bananas, we had Geese, we had Windfresh, Webdeco that would purchase the bananas and will aggregate and export to the United Kingdom. Now you have the traffickers who are doing that job now, aggregating in different communities and ensuring that it is transported to the port and exported to the different countries. With the growing demand locally, persons can expect in 2024 to see the operationalization of a buying depot in Lanley Park, in Lauders, in Lacqua, and Belmont on the leeward side. So remember, you had that boxing plant concept in bananas. So what we're doing, we're not reinventing the wheel. We are looking at what we had, what worked, and we are ensuring that now that we have a diversified production platform, just means that we're no longer dealing with a monocrop, but all of those amenities and facets in the value chain, we have to see a return of those. And we're going to put out there for persons in the private sector who would wish to aggregate, because it's clear you will not be growing 10 pounds of tomatoes and taking it down to the hotel to sell. You have to put it in the supply chain. They have to have cool storage. We can't have everybody growing their tomatoes at the same time. And the project that we have now will be ensuring that we are not only providing the assets, but the guidance will be given from the ministry. And we have the technicians who are there, who are trained. I am advocating the commodity approach, whereby you can have someone who can boastfully say, I am a vegetable farmer in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I sell my vegetables to the depot in Belmont. And there is a day when you are paid, the packaging, you don't have some in some brown bags and some in some tubing and some in some I love you bags. It has to be organized. And I am using...
There have to be standards.
Must be standards. And I'm using this program to reach out to the farmers, because as we bring these changes, they have to be embraced by the farmers.
I just want to reiterate the point. I use example. In the competition that we get through the supermarkets here, for example, commodities reach this country from far-flung places. But that is happening where farmers, even very large farmers with hundreds of acres, are collaborating. They're also collaborating with marketers, with shippers, with credit institutions, which means that there is a kind of a partnership, a kind of engagement, a collaboration that's required to successfully move through that supply chain. We're not very good at that, and we're hoping, because part of this project is that we have a production plan where the successful persons will be put through the various steps to ensure that we have production every month according to demand. Now, we have a culture here, and I must address it.
Yes.
We have a culture where persons don't cooperate. In fact, I grew up hearing that partnership equal leaky ship. And we need to get away from this and have a lot more collaboration. We love to knock each other and find it's good to to point out where we're short so that we could improve. But holistically, we must collaborate and cooperate if we're going to succeed. Not just to deliver for this project, for example, where we're looking at the domestic market, but to ensure through the fast strategy that's with the OECS that we can reduce our food import bill by collectively tackling a market in the OECS, by collectively tackling a market within CARICOM, and in so doing reduce the food import bill, which the target is 25 by 2025. We're probably a bit ambitious on it, but without cooperation, and I've seen quite a bit of green shoots in terms of partnerships. Minister mentioned credit. There's some marketing initiatives as well. Vinci Fresh provided a platform for people to sell side. There's some challenges there, but it's a model that we can emulate or at least build on. The idea is that we must build scale, and if we build scale, then persons who are buying on a large scale can take us seriously. And that's a message I also want to put out there.
So the model is a very simple one. And so far we have captured a comparative analysis, what pertained bananas and where we want to go. But importantly is the issue of sensitization and the buy-in from the stakeholders. For example, I remember when I did the interview the morning when the animals came in from the US, I said, these animals would not be the animals that you will come to the ministry for, because we will be providing you with the offspring from these animals in about 6 to 7 months. Because when Colville explains the cost, we want to ensure that the multiplication centers are given the opportunity to multiply, and then we can assist more farmers.
How many multiplication centers do you have?
We have
two major ones.
Two major ones.
Well, actually,
yes.
we also, that's in Rose Hall in Belmont, sorry,
and
in
Hill.
Rebecca, but we also have, we're utilizing Dumbarton as well.
As an interim.
It's not a designated multiplication center, but we utilize that as well.
But the message is, we want persons to have a very commercial approach. And if you think that you can be a livestock farmer by operating as if you're on an island by yourself, it's not going to happen, because you have to participate in the supply chain. At some point in time, you need credit. You have to have a relationship with the butchers. The butchers have to have a relationship with the hotels. And it has to work in a seamless manner. Remember, there was a shipment day in banana, there was a payday. There were days when you had the boxes being built and transported to the different communities.
So there's a model that...
There is a model.
It's okay. We'll talk some more after we take our final break and come right back.
You can increase your chances of winning the Super 6 jackpot with a combo play. Remember, Super 6 numbers are from 1 to 28. Choose any 5 Super 6 numbers. That's a combo 5 for $69. Match any 5 of the 6 numbers and you will win the jackpot. Choose 7 Super 6 numbers for $21. Match any 6 of the 7 numbers and win the jackpot. There's more. Combo 8, where you purchase 8 Super 6 numbers for $84. Match any 6 of the 8 numbers and you will win the jackpot. There are also Combo 3 and Combo 4 Super 6 plays. Visit the NLA headquarters in Falls Avenue or WhatsApp 495-6886 for more details. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
And the step before that would be, the buyers, the supermarkets, etc. It's a set of conversation that we require around it. Eggs, for example. People think that we ban eggs. We don't ban eggs. We need the same for
different commodities.
Welcome back. I am a bit excited and intrigued by this project and the possibilities. How do you plan to get buy-in from the public, from the consumer, even from participants? Yeah? How are you going to get people?
In 2024, just after the budget, January 2024, we are going to have a more farmer field school approach around commodities, because at the end of the day, we are moving some persons from producing at a subsistence level to now we want them to produce at a commercial level, and feeding systems must change. How they care for the animal has to change, their connections with the vets. And as Colville noted earlier, it is always easier to work with cooperatives. And about 10 years ago, we constructed an excellent cooperative platform in the country, and we saw where many persons got significant returns from participating in cooperatives. But the cooperatives also are affected by the aging farming population. And you know, there were some great leaders who have gone on to the great beyond, who are great leaders in the cooperatives. So the buy-in has to come from the next generation of farmers being infused in these cooperatives and understanding the narrative. Because there are some farmers who will be willing to say, well, I have 5 acres of land. I can survive by farming 2. It covers my cost of living. Why do I expand? Why don't I expand? But if you don't have that critical mass created in the country, then you're forcing the hospitality industry to import. Because we don't want just 100 people, 100 persons, 100 farmers doing an excellent job. There has to be that critical mass. We have to go into the highways, into the byways, we have to go to the schools, we have to go to the churches, and we have to continue to engender that hope and excitement. I saw it this year in Dashin production. When you drive through Mesopotamia, going over down into Greg's and Lauders, some areas which hitherto just had plant grass, because of the marketing expertise and the fact that persons were coming on board to move more Dashin, you saw an exponential increase in the production of Dashin. And with that, persons started to speak about exporting Callaloo. Then you heard persons saying, well, we should can it. So what it does, it engenders not only hope but entrepreneurship. And for persons who are following this program, we have to appreciate that the farmer has to be seen as an investor at all times. We said in the past that agriculture is a business. Well, a farmer is an investor in a business, and it's going to lend itself now for more young persons to look at the supply chain that we have. Who would be the persons who would fix these machines when they are broken? So that's a spill-off industry that you have there, fixing these machines when they're down. You have persons who will be bringing in supplements for the animals.
Or making it.
Or making it. And it's going to grow into something that we are going to be very, very, very proud about. And it's just a matter of time. But as you said earlier, the sensitization has to be deep-seated.
Yes, so we had, in the early stages of implementation, we had some stakeholder meetings, 16 communities, including 3 in the Grenadines. And we would be pursuing similar type, not necessarily the mass meeting talk too, but an engagement in terms of how and to receive feedback and input to ensure that the thing works. At the end of the day, the ministry has technical officers, it has a regulatory responsibility, but without the buy-in and the commitment of the producers, it wouldn't work. So it has to be more conversation type engagements, and those would happen. We'll also have that similar type engagement with buyers, particularly the people who retail, and we have to engage, of course, our consumers. To understand that buying local means that you're having a more nutritious product, that you're supporting livelihoods. We also have to have that conversation on the farmer side to understand what it means to an average family with a particular purchasing power. If you're going to sell more, how do you price to ensure that there's a win-win? The farmer wins, but also the consumer wins. So those kinds of conversations are also part of the stakeholder engagement that is planned, and that must happen.
Is there a threshold that will be implemented for people who want to become involved in this project? For instance, I think,
Well, the thing about it is that in the next 3 weeks, we are going to launch a backyard agriculture project, because we have the view that we know that there are a large number of persons who sell to supermarkets lettuce and cabbage produced in their backyards. And if we can aggregate these persons and create a supply chain, and we can assist them, this is different. And there's also components in the project.
Yes, in this project. Yes, substantial. But I mean, at the end of the day, we have the project. The project is being resourced with funds through, finance through the World Bank. By the way, this project is jointly implemented. So the partnership is with Ministry of Economic Planning, who's actually the lead, and we are actually the technical agency implementing. So there's a partnership there, and it speaks to what is required to get to where we have. For example, when we brought the sheep, it took maybe 40, 50 people working across ministries, across different units to make it happen. And a similar thing, a similar kind of attitude and action is required for us to be successful with this project. I have no doubt it would be, but I'm just making the point for the rest of the public to understand that we can meet you halfway, but you also must meet us halfway. We could recognize where our shortcomings are, we could point those out and seek to improve those, but at the end of the day, for us to survive, for our food security, we must collaborate.
Well, what is very interesting though is that the old adage, seeing is believing. When we had the consultations and we said to persons, well, we're going to bring these things into the country, some persons said, well, we're waiting and seeing, we don't believe it as yet. But then America landed with 103 sheep, and then we're going to bring more things into the country. So I just want for persons to really appreciate that it is started already, and please participate.
This probably has nothing at all to do with the project, but maybe everything. The question of ruminants. There has been quite a lot of talk about the fact that we have been exporting cattle. I know you had a meeting with the cattle farmers or butchers.
The butchers.
Let's talk a little bit about that before the program.
On a lighter side, I want to say I have no beef with the butchers. The butchers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines continue to play a very important role in the country. We spoke about the proteins, we spoke about the food and nutrition security. And if you notice, in several communities, we have the butcher stalls. Remember the days of Albi. And it's part of our culture. Mm-hmm. But what really resonated with me in the meeting was that the butchers concluded, even if we stop exporting to Grenada, let's say we stop exporting to Grenada tomorrow, the demand that is being created inside of the country leads to several things. And the primary one is that we need more persons to get into the production of cattle. We would have a demand for Grenada about 600-700 heads per year. And it's not only Grenada that is knocking on our doors, but the other islands also wishing to import from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And just in the general conversation, I'm duty bound to speak of the fact that there is a lot of reciprocity in trade. So it's not only St. Vincent sending cattle to Grenada, but Grenada is sending spices to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because some persons into mischief making will take this conversation that we're having to say that we are just sending things to Grenada, but there's a very high level of reciprocity. We also import commodities from Grenada, and Grenada is helping us in different areas. But when we look at the revised Treaty of Basseterre, we are an OECS economic union, and some islands have different strengths. And because we had the diamond dairy and we had a long history of raising animals, it's one of the areas that we are very strong in. Grenada, for example, is very strong in spices. They're also very strong in long-line fishing. And we signed an MOU where they will support us in the areas of their strength, and we will support them in the areas that we are strong. So I will be taking a delegation of butchers, firstly to Nicaragua, and then to Brazil, because we want to see how the feedlots systems are done. Because once we get that information, Colville, we can draft up business plans that we can take to the bank. And just like how we created an envelope for the fleet expansion program for persons to buy bigger boats and to get into fishing, the government will provide such envelopes and vehicles for persons to be able to purchase an expansion in livestock production.
Okay.
And of course, the animals that we're bringing in provides the platform.
That's the point. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have when you're in high demand.
Yeah. Well, where has the time gone? We are out of time. I wanted to talk about this present issue of predial larceny. And we didn't get a chance to say anything about that. But I think it's one of the things that we need to consider in all of our conversations relative to agriculture. And maybe...
It is a priority issue among the farmers. During the consultations, you raised it. And perhaps we need a program by itself to address.
Yes.
That can certainly work. That can happen. Yeah?
But again, in the commercialization of livestock production, security cameras is something that we will be placing there. It's not a situation where persons will be raising these animals where they leave them in the mountains hoping that they go and find them tomorrow. So when we speak about the transitioning from the modalities of production that we have now, definitely we will be seeing some significant changes, because the banks will tell you, well, if we are going to provide a loan to you of $200,000, you need to put $25,000 into that to deal with your own local food feed system, insurance at some level, and something to deal with security. So as we build the system out, some of the protective platforms,
risk reduction,
will definitely be a part of them.
Minister, just as you speak about mischief. One of the things is to recognize that when we speak about possibilities and strategies, we think holistically. So individuals may be able to afford a $200,000 loan.
Yes.
But a cooperative of cattle producers or livestock producers can also access it. So it's not that you're excluded because you hear this high number, you're a bit scared that maybe you're not, or afraid that you're not going to be included. The idea is that where individuals cannot address the need,
the collective will.
Then the collective group approach is always an option.
So it's really a call also for solidarity.
Yeah.
At this moment.
Yeah.
Good. I guess that's a perfect note on which to end this evening's edition of Roundtable Talk. Of course, our special guest, the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Ital, and his Deputy Chief Agriculture Officer, Caldwell King, who is a person who is actually heading up the Food Insecurity Project. Of course, we'll be back from time to time with different updates as this project goes on into 2024, and as it develops and is implemented, we'll be back to give you some more updates on how things are going. Good evening and thank you for viewing. See you again next week, Wednesday. Bye.